Hello, my dear viewers. You are welcome to this video. In this video, we're going to discuss academic style with a focus on academic vocabulary. We have learned that in academic writing, the language used is formal. So academic vocabulary is formal, it is generic, and it is discipline specific. What do we mean by formal? It is formal in the sense that contracted forms are not used, colloquial words are not used. For example, you will not write in academic writing the kids, but rather the children. That is formal language. Then academic writing is generic. What do we mean when we say it is generic? It means that across all the disciplines in the academia, there are words and expressions that they all use. For example, they will all talk about abstracts, methodology, literature review, etc. But apart from this, every discipline has its own vocabulary or expressions that they use. So, if we take the discipline of linguistics, they will have vocabulary. For example, they will talk about phonetics, phonology, semantics, etc. But if you go to another discipline, they will also have vocabulary that is specific to that discipline. So, three things: it is formal, generic, and discipline specific. Now, we are going to look at some vocabulary common in academic writing. But we're going to look at their word classes or the parts of speech to which they belong. And we're going to have a focus on 4 parts of speech or 4 word classes. First, we'll look at academic vocabulary that fall under nouns. Then we'll look at adjectives, verbs, and then adverbs. Let's begin with academic vocabulary that fall under the category or the word class of nouns. Nouns in a sentence perform 2 major functions. Nouns function as subjects and sometimes they function as objects. Let's look at some examples. When we talk about a noun functioning as a subject, what it means is that the noun or the item or the thing that is being talked about, that is the noun in the sentence. So for example, in this sentence, the analysis of the result showed a moderate increase in performance. The word analysis is what is being talked about here. So analysis is a noun performing the function of a subject in this sentence. Another example, the second example, the student's claim was accepted. What was accepted? The claim. So the claim is a noun performing the function of a subject. The third example here, I have the accuracy of the calculation amazed the assessor. So the noun that is performing the function of a subject in this sentence is the accuracy. So these words we have looked at are nouns performing the function of subjects. And nouns also perform the function of objects, or they occur in object position. And what do we mean by that? When we say they are functioning as objects, what it means is that they receive the action of a verb. So when a noun receives the action of a verb, we say that that noun is performing the function of an object. Let's look at some examples. The findings have led to a new approach to the study of linguistics. So something led to something. Here, the findings have led to a new approach. So the word approach in this sentence is a noun, but performing the function of an object in the sentence. The next example, behaviorism was the leading authority. The word authority in this sentence is at object position. The third example here, we have the researcher provided evidence to support his claims. So the word evidence in the sentence is a noun, but at object position. Great. Now let's look at academic vocabulary that function as adjectives in the sentence. What are adjectives? We usually say that adjectives modify nouns. They tell us something about the noun. And adjectives can be used attributively and they can be used predicatively. What do we mean by their attributive use and their predicative use? What this means is that if we take an adjective, for example, the adjective tall, and we say the tall boy, right? The tall boy. In that sense, we are using it attributively. We are attributing the quality of tallness to the boy. But we can equally say, for example, the boy is tall. So in this sense, the boy is tall. We are using tall as a predicate. Okay? So adjectives can be used attributively or predicatively. Now let's look at examples of some academic vocabulary that function as adjectives. One example, he adopted a critical approach to data collection. So the word in bold, critical, is an adjective qualifying what? Approach. The next example, the practical implication of the findings were analyzed. So the implication, then we have practical implication. Practical is serving as an adjective qualifying implications. Then the third example, her collection of data was criticized for being subjective. The word subjective is an adjective in this sentence. In this case, it is being used as a predicate. Great. Now, let's look at another word class or part of speech, the verb, and look at some academic vocabulary that function as verbs. What are verbs? Verbs indicate the action that has been taken or the action that is to be taken, right? So we have, for example, they decided to substitute solar energy for hydropower. In this sentence, the word substitute, to substitute. You see, when you have to, a verb occurs immediately after that. So substitute is a verb in this sentence. Then we have the researcher approached the study from a qualitative perspective. So the word approached is a verb in this sentence. The study focused on students' politics. The word focused is the verb in this sentence. So these are examples of academic vocabulary that function as verbs. Let's continue still with verbs and look at verbs that are used in the academic writing that we refer to as reporting verbs. What are these verbs that we call reporting verbs? Reporting verbs are the verbs that we use to help us incorporate information from a source into our writing. So in other words, we use the reporting verbs to report information from a source into our writing. So the way they are used, we usually use them to cite an author of a source. So for example, we have Potake 2020. So Potake is the name of the person. Argues that. So the word argues is a reporting verb, which will permit us to bring Potake's argument. So Potake 2020 argues that social interventions do not make a government popular. That is Potake's view. Great. Then another example, DACO 2021 indicates that editorials are persuasive. So these are the words of DACO, or the idea of DACO, and we use the reporting verb indicates in order to bring it into our writing. Next example, Kuma 2023 defines learning as a relatively permanent change in behavior. So Kuma defines learning. So we use the word define as a reporting verb to help us bring in Kuma's definition. Other examples of reporting verbs are verbs like claim. So you can have somebody claims that, observe, maintain, point out, or state. So these are some other examples of reporting verbs. Now let's look at adverbs, academic vocabulary that fall within the category of adverbs. And what are adverbs? Adverbs are used to modify verbs. In fact, adverbs give us some additional information about verbs or adjectives or other adverbs, but usually they give us additional information about a verb. Now let's look at some examples. You know, adverbs, they may function as adverbs of time, adverbs of degree, adverbs of manner, etc. So adverbs usually tell us the time or the manner or the degree, the manner in which something happens. And there is a trick about adverbs, though that is not the time, that is not always the case. Usually we say adverbs end in ly. So you have examples like usually, recently, currently, broadly, highly, similarly. So usually they end in ly, but that does not mean all adverbs end in ly. Okay, now let's look at some examples of adverbs used in a sentence here. Sentence 1, fermentation eventually begins after 3 days. So eventually is the adverb, okay? The adverb modifying or telling us something about when fermentation begins. Next example, opinion writings are generally perceived as argumentative. So generally is being used as an adverb qualifying or modifying how opinion writings are perceived. Then the third example, enrollment has declined considerably. So the word considerably is an adverb telling us or giving us the picture or the manner in which enrollment has declined. So these are examples of adverbs in a sentence. Now let's look at a short practice exercise. What is the word class of the words in bold? 1. There is no correlation between height and wealth. So what is the word class of the word in bold? Correlation. In this sentence, correlation is functioning as what? A noun. Next example, the lecturer gave the precise definition of atom. The word in bold is precise, and precise is functioning as what? An adjective in this sentence. Third example, the study concentrated on the aged. The word concentrated is a verb in this sentence. The last one, she behaved responsibly. The word responsibly is functioning as an adverb qualifying how she behaved. Great. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in this video we have discussed academic style with a focus on academic vocabulary. That academic vocabulary is usually formal. and we have looked at some examples of academic vocabulary that fall under the 4 word classes as nouns, as adjectives, as verbs, and as adverbs. Thank you.